Hi, I've had a couple of requests to do a tutorial for a covered busk. I put up an example. I was doing a spooky kabuki outfit, so that had a covered busk on it, and I've basically decided to do a video showing how to do that. I think I did a couple of pictures, but they weren't too clear and it wasn't with a tutorial in mind, so this is a proper tutorial. The pattern I've got on the table I took when I was at Symington a couple of years ago now. It's for a black 1880s corset. The original corset has a 19-inch waist. You can see it's not exactly massively extreme shaped. It's only 4 panels per side. It's just very, very small. It's similar to the Pretty Housemaid in that it's got the kind of corded hip panel, and it's quite a cute little corset. I'll see if I can get a link to it. It's black with sort of daisies down the seams. My double pattern project theme this year that I've given myself is trying to do corsets for some of the characters from Joss Whedon's sort of universe, and I decided, if you read my earlier post, that I was going to do a traditional Victorian corset for Drusilla, so I decided to dig this pattern out and have a go at making it up again, as it's been a good year or so since I used it. And what better kind of corset to use to do a covered busk? There's a number of reasons you might want one. If your corset is being worn under clothes is one example of that, because you may not want the busk to show through. But what I do, this has got seam allowance on, so if you notice that one, basically I've decided to make this corset slightly bigger than 19 inches at the waist. I'm just adding the 1 centimetre allowance I had as seam allowance on this one. It was cut out to the whole of it, so it's basically just going to be 1 centimetre wider at each seam and 1 inch wider at the front. So what I did to start off with, you can see I've done it in black Sharpie, which is really inaccurate and kind of not what you would want to do. You want to use a very sharp pencil and be more precise. I'm just doing this to show you. You can see I've already done it, but just so you know, to go through the motions. Draw around the corset, make sure that front edge is nice and straight. Clearly mark. This is your centre front. I'm going to do this with Sharpie so you can see. This is where your busk would go on a normal corset. So if I hold that up, it should look something like the front panels of a corset. With a covered busk, the way I do it, what you want to do, create a mirror image of your corset. So use the other panel, or just flip this one over. Again, draw around that, you know, all the way around. More accurate than that, and you'll have this. So it looks like a very nice drawing of a corset, which is essentially what it is. You want to cover your busk, so you need it to come out at least as wide as the busk. You then add seam allowance when you either adjust the pattern or when you actually cut it out. The way I've done it, I've brought it out a bit further because the fabric I'm going to be using has quite a big pattern on it, and I want that to stay intact. So I've brought this out here. What I then do, this line here becomes the new edge of my front panel. You only do this on one side, so on this one I'll cut this one out of the coutil and of the fashion fabric and any interlining I'm using, and then the other one I would basically ignore that line. I would cut out this. So that was just a normal panel, the way you would normally cut out that side. I'm going to give this a rest now, cut it out, and then get back to you. Part 2 of my covered busk tutorial. This is my pattern. It has no seam allowances on it. However, it's almost like a standard front panel with the seam allowance, in that if I fold down this dotted line, that's just the front panel. This is what we have just added to make it a covered busk. To put it on something with a pattern on the front, this is what you need to do. I'm using, again, a Sharpie. I can't find my tailor's chalk, and you're not going to stand a cat in hell's chance of seeing the pencil, so don't do this in Sharpie, do it in something that's going to come off. This is on the reverse of the fabric, this is the front. So it's not going to show. I'm not fussed about this. Remember, the reason the fabric isn't folded is that you only need one with this excess on it. Which side you use is up to you. I prefer to do it on the side with the hooks, because that is going over. So yeah, in fact it wouldn't work the other way, so just do it on the side with the hooks. Ignore what I just said, which means it needs to be going this way. Okay, what I'm doing, this is the pattern on here. I was going to use some fabric with a slightly clearer pattern to draw down, but I don't really want to waste any fabric and did want to do it on something with a pattern, so drawing a line down the centre of the pattern. Again, please forgive me for using a Sharpie, it's just that I do want you to be able to see how to do this, and I know it's not going to show up if I do it in pencil, so there you go. Now I've done that, you can see this line here. I'm just going to quickly figure out which way I want this to go. So that is that side. So yeah, I want it actually the other way. So if you give me 1 second, I'm just going to draw this line on this side. So you can see. Again, I'm probably going to cut this out anyway, a bit more accurately after. So. It's going this way, this is the top, and the fabric is going this way. So what you then need to do is make sure you pin this line along this one that you've just drawn, so that the centre will be the centre. So I want the rings in the middle. Go. Just that. Pin it along this line. Make sure you've got plenty of pins. I know people at the moment, there's a lot of hot topic about using weights rather than pins with fabric, and I'm sure that there's a way of doing it that way instead of this way, but I don't have weights, I have pins, so I'm using those. I would rather use them as they're going to be a bit more stable in this case. Remember, there's no seam allowance on this, so once you've put that so that the centre front line goes down the line you've marked as the centre of your pattern. If you're doing it with plain fabric, you can just stick it as long as it's on the grain line, which I have pretty much ignored because this is very rough, so forgive me on that front. Just pinning this. Once I've done this, I will draw around it, add the seam allowance, cut out the other half, which you just do the same as you would, and then cut it out in coutil. You need 2 in coutil of this, by the way, rather than just 1. So you need to, in total, if you're only using 1 layer of coutil or broche or whatever your strength fabric is going to be, you need 1 more of these than you would normally cut out, for various reasons. Right, that now is pinned. This is a balance mark, so make sure you mark it. And at the bottom as well, and I'll get back to you once it's been cut out. A quick video, as I will forget otherwise. Basically, this you can see has a larger seam allowance here. This is the side that the hook side of the busk is going to be inserted into. So if I put this so that the balance marks I pointed out to you, which are the exact centre front of the corset, match up with the ones on the stud side of the busk. Like this. You can see that this comes out further, so basically if you give this a turn over, it's going to come in like this, and have this going down the centre front. What I haven't done on this, I did it on the Spooky Kabuki one, the original one, so if you don't believe me, you can go and look at that picture. This corset is basically just made up of some scrap fabric I got ages ago for about 50p a metre. It's the right kind of colour scheme for the character I'm making it for, but it's really just to test this pattern and see if I'm happy with the silhouette for her, because shape is so important, as it's one of the themes I'm working to. So I didn't match this to this. what I would suggest if you are doing something with a prominent pattern is that you match this half to this half, so that the pattern, when you put it here, would go all the way across. If you don't know how to do that and you want me to show you, I'm happy to do that. I'm only doing this very quickly as I have been asked quite a few times to do the tutorial, and thought this would look nice with the covered busk though, so I haven't done it on this one, but it's something that you should remember to do when you're doing one with a prominent pattern across the front. If you're just doing it out of plain fabric and you want the busk to be covered because it's going to show, or you just want to have a go at doing this, again, you don't have to worry about that. Just thought I would point that out before I forget. This is just a quick video because I didn't want to just skip a couple of steps showing you. I've put the stud side of the busk in, which I can't get far enough to show on there in a second. There you go. What you need to do for the covered side, you'll remember I said you needed to cut 2 out with the extra seam allowance. You actually only needed, you could either do 2 of that or you could do 1 of that and then just cut out the stuff with the standard seam allowance twice to make it easier and to get it a bit less confused. I have done it with this one. With this side, you're going to put the hook side of the busk in. Some people will kind of use a facing to put a busk in. The way I'm doing it is the way that I show. It's one of the first things I ever had on my site. Normally I'll basically put a row of buttonholes down and put the busk through and then fold underneath. However, basically, so you can see it's kind of folded over on this, but with buttonholes along this edge to thread the hooks through. However, rather than folding it underneath for this, to make it a bit neater, the other side I'm going to fold it in because the covered side of the busk is going to be on top of that anyway. So put the busk in using that method. If you really hate that method, then I would obviously make a facing, but bring it so the facing comes on top. I'll show you that when it's done as well, because I'm aware that I'm a bit awful at explaining things sometimes. Okay, I've now done the hook side of the busk, which you can see is just in the cotil. I wasn't really thinking when I decided which busk to use. I thought it would be quite nice with a row of eyelets at the top, forgetting that that will be covered up by the covered busk anyway. So it doesn't go right to the top, but you get the general idea. What I then did, I flatlined the fashion fabric with the extra seam allowance to the remaining piece of cotil along the edges, except for this one. So yeah, that one, leave open. The next stage, pin this to the one with the cotil which has the hook side of the busk in it. Again, just do it around the 3 edges which aren't with the excess, and then flatline the 2 together. Okay, this is the last video. You can see I have sewn the outside layer with the cotil to the inner layer which has the busk in, which is just the 1 layer of cotil, around this edge, and the top edge. Haven't done anything down here. I've then bound the edge. You don't have to do that. Another option would be you could either bind it and then fold it under if you wanted the pattern to remain intact across both panels. The first one I did, I just overlocked. This kind of is quite stiff and not likely to fold back because of the cotil, but if you really wanted, you could also do it like a row of press studs with 1 half down here and 1 here, or hooks and eyes. This is pretty much going to be fine though, as it's cotil and isn't just going to flap around. If you decided to do it with only the fashion fabric, then I would do that. I'll just put this up here if it will go. Okay, that's the best I'm going to get. showing you that the busk is covered. Fold that back and you've got busk. Hopefully that has explained it nicely for people. If you kind of did have any questions, feel free to ask.